Hi everybody, this is Jason again. Wanted to come back to you and give you an overview of a game I picked up a few weeks ago. Got this actually as a late Christmas present because they were putting the finishing touches on it right before Christmas and released it about a month ago. And I was very excited to get this in the mail. This is Stuffed Fables. This is made by Plaid Hat games. These are the same people that made Mice and Mystics, which my family and I really enjoy too. This game is also designed by Jerry Hawthorne, and it plays up to 4 players. It needs at least a couple players to enjoy this, so 2 to 4 players to play Stuffed Fables. I've got a little bit of just a test setup here just to show you an overview of what this game is like. One of the main features of this game is this adventure book. And this is just a big book. It's wire bound there in the middle. Tons of pages in here. And with maps and stories and adventures. There's a rickety bridge haven't seen yet. Boy, there's yikes. Some burning areas there. I'll have to figure out what that is later too. That's a real scary scene going down right here. And so you work your way through the book here. I actually picked a scenario just to bring up because it had a few interesting features on it that I thought would be a good one to show you guys too. All the instructions for each page of the or each map that you're looking at here are over here on this opposite page too. Gives you any special rules. It guides you through each section by section number. Things will reference these section numbers. It'll say, you know, go to 21.2, and so you go to 21.2 and read that. Because this section has some flowing water in it, they come with some special status cards. For example, just telling you a little bit about what happens in water spaces. There's an extra card that gives you some background. There's some special movement rules, for example, that get you on the water spaces. I just did a little setup here just to kind of show you what some of the features would be. Here is a player card for Piggle. I'll show you what some of these things are here in a second, but Piggle's a little pig-shaped toy. And there's your pig-shaped toy sitting on this rock in the middle of the river. And then over here is a Lionel. Lionel's a little courageous lion that you can meet later on in the adventure. Each of these cards has some features on it. A base power. This one has a base power of ferocity. Piggle has a base power of lucky. He gets some special benefits with using the purple dice, which are wild cards. Lionel, ferocity lets you re-roll red dice. Red dice are important because they're attack dice and strength dice. They're also good for Lionel. He can use them as a defense dice. There's some little special powers here. Lionel has Counter Strike, Intimidate, and Stuff Strike, and gives him some special features. But to use these special features, he has to spend one of these hearts. You earn the hearts doing some brave things in the adventure, and once you've stacked up a few hearts there, you can spend them to do extra special powers too. You'll just put that aside and say, I'm going to use his Stuff Strike's power and spend a heart. This is currency. You get some buttons for defeating enemies, and you can sometimes use those to maybe help out another Stuffy on the page, or buy a special item, and that's pretty cool. There's a spot down here. Your health points are tracked in stuffing, and there's your stuffing pieces. When you're out of stuffing, you've been defeated, and it takes some help from your friends to get your stuffing back up. You can actually, for example, give stuffing from one character to another. I've got you can store 1 dice. We'll get to the dice in a second, but you can store 1 dice on your card. There's a spot there to store some dice. He doesn't have a die stored on his card, too. He's got a little more stuffing there, and only 1 button. in the setup I did. And I gave him each a weapon. Now Lionel has his weapon just sewn into his body. He's got a claw on the right side, so this is the only weapon he can hold. Too, but it gives him a +1 attack to his, or sorry, +1 when rolling a red die, which is often going to be your attack dice, too. He's got a range weapon. Piggle over here is a range weapon. He uses a slingshot. Notice it's got a range on it. It can go all the way across the map, pretty much. Its range is 7. It gives him a +1 when using a green dice, which a green dice is the ones you're usually going to be using for ranged attacks. They're also your movement dice. Sorry, so I wanted to show you, this is one of the enemies here. This is a mongrel. This is a crawly. This is a dark heart. If I can zoom in properly, you can see he's got just kind of a hole in his chest where his heart should be. It's very sad. He lets off these plaintive yells. He's one of the ranged attackers that can do a haunting gibberish or a spooky screech at ranged attacks and do damage. The crawlies just run around and clack at you there with their claws. Reminds me of those dolls in Under Sid's Bed in Toy Story. I think it's probably the inspiration for that one. This is just this mechanical dog that can rip you to shreds a little bit there, so that's a little unnerving. Also on the board, there's some objectives. It's actually a better place in the river that's up here to maybe swim over and get to that spot. And some little lost tokens that let you talk to some of the characters that are in the world here. If you land on one of those, there's actually somebody there that can help you out, or give you a choice to maybe help out. You can help them out. But that's kind of the overview of the map. I wanted to show you a little bit about how maybe the turns would go. I wanted to show you this Piggle. I have just for the sake of discussion, I have a worried status card on it. It's one of the things you can have. So this guy can't use or store purple dice and must get a 4 or higher on rolling a blue die, or an adjacent Stuffy can pass that same blue skill test with difficulty 2. In other words, if a friend comes up next to him and tells him, it's all right, don't be worried, he can get that worried status card removed with a using a blue dice, rolling a 2 or higher on a d6, which is great too. I love these little mechanics in here. So I want to show you what a typical turn would be. You're going to reach into this dice bag over here, nice dice bag. It's full of some dice, and you're going to reach in here and grab some dice and put down 5 dice in front of you when it's your turn. There's different colors. Right now there's a black die, a red die, a blue die, a white die, and then I put in these translucent purple dice here too. It comes with some pink dice that calls them purple dice. It's to help out colorblind players. It comes with some orange dice that they call red dice. I went ahead and just got some red and purple dice to put into the game. I made the purple ones translucent so that it stood out a little bit because those are special. I'll explain here in a second. The next thing you do after you draw your 5 dice is you try to find stuffing. So this will be Lionel's turn here. Lionel only has 3 stuffing, like I said, and so he's going to roll this white dice, and if I get a 3 or higher, because I have 3 stuffing, I will gain a stuffing too, and I rolled a 5, so this is great. So I go over to the common pool and I would just add a stuffing, so now I've got 4 stuffing over there. I wanted to notice he had a yellow die stored there. We're going to leave that there for a second, but if I wanted to, I could roll that and use that this turn too. The next thing we do after we try to find stuffing, we'll just discard that dice for a second, dot die, is that we would place threats. And so what I do is I take the black dice. The black dice are the threat dice. Those represent the enemies on the board over here too, and I will add it to the board, the threat board too. And so now there's 2 dice on the threat board. I started this scenario with 1 of those already up there from a previous turn, so there's 2 up there now. And so we'll get to that here in a second. But the next thing we do is perform some action. So now I have 3 other dice, 4 if I want to use that yellow die, that I can take actions with too. So if you'll notice, Lionel over here is right next to this mongrel, and he's diagonal counts as adjacent, so he's right next to him, and he's swimming in the water, but he's going to swing up and go ahead and try to use the red dice to attack the mongrel there. And remember, when performing a melee attack, I get to add +1 to my red dice result, so I can get anywhere from a 2 to a 7 on here. I'll have you note that his hit points, his defense point, sorry, is a 7. I've got to get a 7, which means I've got to get a 6 on this dice too. So I'm going to get a little help with that, because these purple dice are wild dice. Wild dice can be used for any of the other attribute dice too. It doesn't substitute for a black or a white, but any of these green, yellow, blue, or red dice it can substitute for. And so I'm going to try to get a 7 or higher on those 2 dice, like I'm drawing 2 red dice. Remember, I get to add +1 to this. And so that is, oh, look at that, it's perfectly a 7, it's actually an 8. And so that is enough to take out that leader. If I had rolled anything less, he would just still be standing there, or bounced off of him too. So he takes his claw, reaches up and swipes that leader, and is able to remove him from the board. When he does that, he would gain a button that he can use to spend later, if need be. And those dice don't get used right now. If you notice, there's this dark red line, and I chose to use my melee die, or my red dice, to attack. But I need it's also your strength die, and I needed it to climb up onto the shore there. So I'm not going to be able to climb up onto the shore too. I am going to try to maybe use my yellow die to get a... Oh, sorry, I've got a blue die here. Let's use that blue die. I'll use my yellow die too. I'll show you something else we can do here too. But I'll use my blue die to get a little farther. I'm going to roll that, because one of the things I can do is move. Now, moving, you can use any dice too. There's some dice, like I said, if I want to move across that red line, I need to pull up a red dice. Some of them have green lines that take a little more agility. Green represents agility. Red is more like strength. And I'm going to use this blue dice to try to maybe swim over here towards one of these objectives too. The problem is, oh no, I'm in the water. When a stuffy enters a water space, I moving. Let's see, let's read this. Spend 1 attribute die to move from one water space to the other. So I won't even roll this. I've just got to sit there and use it to just swim. Oh, I didn't show you that on the camera there. I'll just swim 1 step forward, trying to get to that objective. There, I'll spin the blue dice, but I'm going to try to fish around in the water a little bit. I'm going to use a yellow die to search, and I'll show you up here. Is this little search icon, and this map, I've got to get a 4 or higher. That's a 4, 5, or 6, so I got a 50-50 shot at searching in this water here, so I can find anything useful that I can pull up and use. But no, I got a 3, so I just wasted a die trying to fish around for something there. Couldn't find it, and if instead I'd chosen to keep that here, I can use that as a defense dice. And just for an example, I'll show you what happens if I would have kept it there too, because... Oh wait, let me show you a couple of things I can do. I can reserve a die. There it says right there, I can reserve a die. I can just put it there and save it for later. I can use it the next round, or I can use it as a defense dice. I can encourage somebody. I can encourage them by giving them a die that they can use later. I can also spend that dice to give another stuffy one of my stuffings. So I can do as often as I want. I just got to spend dice to do it too. But I'm going to hang on to my stuffing right now. Let's see. Place threat. I did that before. Okay, sorry. Skill test. Oh, some of these will have skill tests. I told you to get rid of the worried card. I'd have to do a 4 or higher on a blue dice, or get a friend to do that with me. Group tasks. Some of the maps will have group tasks that they have to spend certain dice, either the wild dice or certain color dice, to get that built up on. That actually gets tracked over here. That 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the threat track over on the side is where you'd start totaling up dice that you were trying to help pass a skill test on, too, for the group, or group dice. Too. I can attack, which I did, and I can search, which I did. I'm going to pretend I didn't and bring that back and use that later. Any dice that I already used will just get discarded, and I'll just put them up there, and then we'll set those aside, because right now we're going to look and check a threat. And so we come over to the threat dice, and I see I have 2 threat dice there, and actually that's enough, because what you'd look at is the number of stuffies, and so I've got Piggle and Lionel there, and since I have 2 stuffies, 2 threat dice will trigger a turn for the remaining 2 characters. Oh, I didn't get rid of the mongrel. Hang on. He's gone. But I do still have a Crawley and a Darkheart, too. And it doesn't matter that those dice weren't lined up right, because we can just do that. There's 2 dice on the board, 2 threats, and so I'm going to roll those. The Crawley gets a 2, the Darkheart, ooh, got a 6, 2. So on a 2, the Crawley, it says there 1 to 3, does a rush. He's going to move 4 spaces. Well, he's stuck over on the other side of the river. He's not going to move anywhere. And then he's going to do an attack. Unfortunately, it's a range 1 attack, and he cannot reach Piggle. He's sitting there with the 1 space in between him and Piggle, and so he can't really do anything right now, too. Oh, I take that back. He can. I forgot. They aren't bothered by these things, so he's just going to splash into the water and climb up and attack Piggle there, too. So he does 3 damage when he does that. Piggle doesn't have any dice saves, so he can't do anything to defend against that. He just loses 3 stuffing with that attack. That is pretty awful, too. So he's down to 1 stuffing left. The Darkheart got a 6, so he targets the farthest stuffy within range, too. Well, there's the Darkheart over there, and the farthest stuffy from him is Lionel sitting over here. So he's going to target Lionel, too. He's not going to move. He's stuck over there anyway. And no, actually he's not. He'll swim into the water a little bit. The attributes don't seem to stop these guys, too. But at this point, he's going to just go ahead and try to get Lionel, too. And he's going to do that spooky screech. It's got a range of 4, no problem. He's only 2 steps away from Lionel at this point. And it does 5 damage. That's not good for Lionel, because Lionel only has 4 stuffing. However, Lionel saved a die. And so what we're going to do with that die is actually try to defend against that. And so I'm going to roll this, and he would otherwise be doing 5 damage. And so I can block up to 5 damage by rolling this dice. And so I can block up to 6, but I'm going to block, only going to block up to 5, because he's only going to do 5. I roll that die, and I got a 4, which means out of the 5 damage he was going to do, I blocked 4 of them. I only lose 1 stuffing. So I'm going to live to fight another day. That dice gets discarded. Now, if I had gotten a 5 and blocked all of the damage, if it's a complete block of all of the damage, too, or of course a 6, I would actually get to keep that die and maybe defend against another attack, too. But that die will get discarded with the other dice over here now that I was able to block that attack. And now these dice, and then all of the dice that have been built up so far in our discard pile, go back into the bag, and we'll start with the next person's turn, which would be Piggle. And so we'll go back and forth like that until all of the enemies are defeated. I will note that the lost tokens there, if you land on one of those, pick up one of those. Lost tokens, you just discard the token, but you get to grab a lost card. And these things give you a little choice here, to the Darning of the Dino, and you can help an unstuffed Brontosaurus toy that's laying there, too, and he needs some patching, and so maybe you can give him a button or a stuffing. If he does, he'll be your buddy. and you can discard this card to automatically pass the skill test without rolling attribute dice. So he gets to help you out later too. He'll just hang out with you until he can help later in the adventure. So that's pretty cool. So things like that can happen. The adventure says the first one to get over here and get one of these stars actually gains a heart. So there's one of our hearts. Here we'll put Piggle over there. If Piggle got over and got that star, we'll put a heart on his thing. He can use this power of positivity, blessings of the child, or intense luck too, which is great. He can use this ability after a player rolls a purple dice. So any player rolls a purple dice, he can change the result of one of those purple dice to a 6. So he can automatically give it the highest possible roll that purple dice could have gotten if he spends one of his hearts too. And that's the game. You're going to go through, maybe complete some of these adventures. There's lots of, each adventure, each page is its own minigame. This one involves swimming through the river and trying to avoid these stuffies. Too. There's actually a little adventure here. If you can see, there's a 2 there, which tells you to come over here and read number 2 up here. And you get a little story about the remains of a bicycle embedded in the surging water. You can actually see there's the bicycle embedded in the surging water. And it gives you a little story about what's happening right there. Gives you a choice to make. Lots of great choices. I think this game is great for families. I think this game would work well with young children. It's something that my kids are teenagers now, and they enjoyed playing, and so I'm looking forward to playing this some more with them. I'm gonna paint these miniatures. That'll be a lot of fun. Some of the enemies are pretty cool looking too, and we'll build those guys up with some paint and make them look pretty cool. And then I'm going to enjoy playing this with other kids. I'm going to enjoy playing this maybe with my grandkids someday too. Just what a neat game to be able to play with families. If it's just my wife and I sitting down, we're going to have fun playing this. There was some little bonus material I wanted to show you. You can go online and get something called Lost Fables, sorry, Stuffed Fables, The Lost Story. Matter of fact, I love it. It says Lost Story number 1. Hopefully they'll come up with more. And I just took this to a local print shop and had them print out the PDF, and it's got another little story here too, with a scary bad guy in it who's going to cause some trouble, and just more maps and more stories. So this thing can use this setup to build even more stories. Heck, you could even write your own if you wanted, I suppose. This game's flexible enough for that. Hopefully there'll be some fan stories people put out. That would be very cool. The other bonus item I picked up besides the Lost Stories there's a coloring book. Oh, here we go. There's a coloring book that had in it a puppy. He didn't have a name, but he's a playable character. Doesn't come with a stuffy, so I went online and found an Etsy shop. They're sending me a puppy from Thailand that I think would fit really well with this. Let me see if I can find the giraffe. There's also a giraffe. He doesn't have a name either. We'll have to name him. He's got a special attribute of being tall. When moving or attacking, all colored lines count as dotted white lines, which means you can just kind of look over them or shoot over them or step over them. And I actually found already online, hang on a second, a stuffy miniature to fit for the tall giraffe there, too. A little polymer clay giraffe. What a cutie. Too. Matter of fact, this guy has a little scarf. I may have to get him a little scarf to wear too, but he can hang out with Lionel's buddies, and he's appropriately tall. He's about twice as tall as the actual miniatures there too, so he'll work really well on the map, but he still fits. I love that. He still fits right inside one of those little squares. If you can see closely, there's some little squares on the map, and he fits fine on one of those squares. Too. I might put a little base on him, I might not. He stands up just fine too, so I'd love to play around with him a little bit too on some adventures. That was just a bonus coloring book item, which I'll have fun coloring this too. I'm going to have my wife color that up, and we'll use this in some future game as well. So I was pretty excited about even just the bonus features they added in for free like that. So I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope you get this game and play it with your kids. Play it with any kids you can find. Play it for yourself. You just have a lot of fun. playing and painting and rolling some dice in Stuffed Fables.